Welcome to Master Gardening. I'm your host, Bud Qualk, and we're back at my garden. This is my greenhouse. What do you think, Dan? All these were sown seeds in the last month or two. This is where I go to relax. This is my heaven. This is my cave. Stay tuned. We've got some great things coming up. I'll be right back. Most of the time when people talk about improving the soil or anything to do with the soil, they usually talk about it's loam or it's sandy or it's clay or composting, and you got to make the structure of the soil better. That's for another day. Today we're going to talk about what most people call fertilizer. Not 100%, but most. Okay, there are different kinds of ways to fertilize. This, and don't pay attention to the logos on these things, but this is a fertilizer that you mix in your watering can. And that's what I'm going to use here in the greenhouse. I mix up my watering can, and every 2 weeks I will give my plants a little bit to eat. Okay, the watering can. It's one way to do it. Another way to do it is slow release nodules, capsules, I don't know what you want to call it, Tammy, but slow release, little things that you sprinkle on top of your pot, sprinkle on top of your plant, and it lasts 9 months. As you water the plant or as it rains, these little things will slowly dissolve, and there's 6 months on this one. Okay, that's another way to do it. Another way to fertilize your plants is with your water hose. If you've got a huge lawn or you've got a huge bed, you put these little granules in this container, and they're all different kind of brands and different ways to do it. You hook up your watering hose to that, and we'll do this again sometime later on in the year when I'm out there doing it. And as you turn your watering hose on, it slowly draws those chemicals up into the hose, and supposedly it's all set scientifically to release exactly the right amount of fertilizer to your yard or your beds. And why are we talking about this right now? Because this is spring. You can tell by looking at all my plants, and then outside we'll take another look at the plants and things outside, and you can see this is spring. This is the time to go out and not only fertilize your yard, but fertilize all your beds, and especially your trees. Fruit trees especially. If you want to have a good crop this year, this is the time to start fertilizing. Don't wait till it's time for the fruit to appear. You got to do it right now. Vegetable beds, the same way. You want to fertilize now, starting right now. Okay, now not only can you fertilize, there's some other things you can do to your vegetable plants, your flowers, your yard, is ironite. And I don't think it's considered, and I think that's a brand name, but that's the only one they really have. This stuff is mined in caves out in Colorado or Wyoming or someplace. There's no nitrogen, there's no phosphorus, there's no potassium in here. Those are your three main things that you use for fertilizer. These are all trace elements. Your really minor things like magnesium and copper and iron and all that stuff that your plants and your soil really need, but they don't get it in your normal fertilizer. This, believe it or not, this without all that nitrogen, this will green up your grass. You might consider that. This is wonderful stuff. One thing that I use a lot of is this granulated fertilizer in bulk. You can get this at your co-op or your nursery. This happens to be 13-13-13. That represents your nitrogen, potassium, and phosphorus. Sulfate. Nitrogen, potassium, and phosphate. Tammy had me all screwed up. This is really simple. Just take that out, sprinkle it around on your beds and in your yard and around your trees. And I use a lot of that. That's bulk. Now, we've got them fertilized. We've got the nitrogen. We got trace elements. We got our phosphate. We got our potassium. What about our pH? Okay, you've heard that pH used before, and I don't know what pH stands for. It might be something like percent hydrogen or possibly hydrogen. I don't know. But pH, it's a measurement of your acidity and your alkalinity in your soil. It's a range 1 to 14, 7 being neutral. And most all plants like 7 neutral. So if you've got a 7 neutral on your pH rating, you're probably okay. But if you have plants that like acidity or alkalinity, alkaline, which alkaline is sweet, and you use lime to get that. Acidity is anything below 7, it's acid or sour, and you use sulfate to get that. For instance, let's take blueberries. I killed blueberry plants for years in my yard until I realized that they like 4.5, not 7, 4.5. So I started putting sulfate in my soil. It took about 4 years, and finally my blueberries look great. Same as azaleas, blackberries, strawberries, they all like acid soil. Okay, what likes above 7? Well, your lilacs. If your plants are doing fine and they're growing fine, your pH is probably okay. If you've got some plant that's not doing well, then you need to have your soil tested maybe and adjust your pH. And like I said, if you want to make your soil more alkaline or more sweet above 7, or if you've got a low acid soil and you want to bring it up to 7, you put on lime. Don't just throw lime out there every year, because you're going to slowly build that up above 7 and the plants won't like it. The other way around, you can use sulfate, and what I like to use is aluminum sulfate. It comes in a real good form. It affects your soil really quickly, and I will sprinkle this around my blueberries and my azaleas for sure later on this week. Okay, and what the heck is pH? pH means hydrogen ions, the hydrogen ion that's in the soil, how much? Okay, and why is that important? Because how much hydrogen is in your soil, that determines whether that type of plant can pull nutrients out of the soil. If it's too much hydrogen, some plants can't. If there's not enough hydrogen in there, the plants can't pull those nutrients out. It's just a matter of feeding. It helps the plant feed. Well, let's go outside. I'm going to put on my skivvies. We're going to get out, dig in the mud a little bit, plant some plants. We'll be right back. While we were gone, Dan, the cameraman, looked up pH on his cell phone and found out that pH, H stands for hydrogen, but nobody knows what the P stands for, so I feel good about that. The guy who made that up never told anybody, and nobody wrote it down. So just a tidbit for your trivia games. Okay, look at daffodils. They're blooming right now. But look, this is one kind of daffodil here. There's another one back here. See, these are already spent. But you've noticed there's only a half a dozen daffodil blooms in this whole bunch. Guess what? They're planted too close together. They've multiplied. They've got so close together that the blooms they're not very many blooms. So as soon as these die back, I'm going to dig these up, separate them, and replant them. Get a lot more blooms that way. You see the ones in the front, how I'm separated? They've got a little room to bloom. Every single plant bloomed. Every single one. So that's what I want with these. So you have to dig these up every once in a while, divide them up, and replant them, which is a good thing. Okay, the other thing is, see how these are spent? What do you do with daffodils when they get like this? Most people just let them go, and that's okay. But if you want to increase and make your plants more stronger, you pull that top off. There's a seed pod right there, and you'll notice when this finally goes away, this seed pod will swell up. A lot of the energy will go into that seed pod. You don't want seeds. You're not going to get any more out from seeds. You want it to go back down into the root. So we pull that seed pod off, all the energy will go into the roots and make the bulbs bigger and more healthy. Now a lot of people, they'll cut them all the way back to here. That's fine too, whatever you want to do. But if you've got a bunch of daffodils like I do, I've got thousands. I usually don't get around to that. But that's the way you're supposed to do it. Going by the book, Tammy. Okay, let's go over to the garden, vegetable garden beds. We're going to do some planting. I'm going to get Tammy, and wait till you see her knee pads. We're going to get Tammy busy helping me out. Come on, Tammy. If you saw our show last time, I've got all these garden beds. They're 4 foot by 16 feet. There's a few that are 4 by 8. This is where all my vegetable gardening is done. And Tammy's going to help us today. She's what they call a novice when it comes to vegetable gardening. Got her knee pads. Don't forget that. There's her knee pads. Okay, first of all, we're gonna take a trowel and dig a little hole right over there in the corner.
How deep?
Right about right there, be fine.
Like that?
A little bit more. That's good. Now knock your plant out of here. How you do that, just squeeze on the bottom and pull the plant, and there she goes. If it was any other kind of plant, we'd pull the roots loose, but that's fine. Just stick it in the ground.
Does it have to go all the way to the, should I dig it deeper?
You want it to be about the same level it was in the store, but a little bit deeper is even better.
So I should go a little deeper?
Yeah, now you're talking.
Okay.
A little deeper.
How's that?
That's it. Pull the soil in around it. If you're worried about watering, you could make a little bowl around there and leave it a little bit lower in the center, and maybe build up a little ridge around there for watering. That would be a good thing to do. I don't have to worry about that too much out here. The soil's nice and wet. Okay, knock another one out, Tammy. Put one up in there.
How far?
About a foot apart. They're not really fussy. These are broccoli plants, Tammy. You like broccoli?
I do.
What'll happen to these, if you've never grown it before, they'll have one big, huge head on top, and then when you cut that off, that spurs on all these other little heads that'll come up later.
I did it!
You did it! She's easily entertained, Dan. Okay. Okay, that's nice and easy. Well, here's a dibble. Most people don't know what a dibble is, but I've got a big one I've got a big one in the greenhouse. That's what the old timers used to use. They call them plugs and other things, but really for planting tobacco, especially. You take it, make a hole like that, stick it in there.
You're much faster.
Yeah, you can plant a whole. When you're planting 500,000 plants of tobacco plants, you want to be fast as you can. Okay, let's plant another one over here, and then I'm going to demonstrate. This is the time of the year for planting broccoli plants, cabbage plants, cauliflower, Brussels sprouts, lettuce, all that good stuff. We'll plant some more here in a little bit. But I want to talk to you about interplanting. Interplanting. Look at all the soil, this room in here. I've got these beds. I need to use every inch of that bed, right?
Right.
Well, Tammy's going to do it. If you look here, Dan, here's some shallots. Here's some onion sets. Onion sets. They're already this little bulb, look like little onions. And here, my favorite, are the onion plants that come out this time of year. Okay, we're going to interplant this.
So it's okay to mix
Right.
your stuff up?
Right. It won't hurt, by interplanting this with the onions, it won't hurt these broccoli plants at all. They'll need that whole area when they get big, but they're not going to be pulling any nutrients out of this soil for a long time. Now you can use that, use a trowel, or if it's nice and soft like this, a little hole with your finger.
So how come you don't put that all the way under like you do these? Why does it stick up like that?
If you put that deep and the onion bulb matures under the ground, it's restricted on how big it can get because it's got to push the soil out of the way. But if you grow this like this, now when this gets a little bit bigger and it starts forming a bulb, you pull the soil back, so the only thing that's in the ground is the roots. The whole onion is above the ground. You'll see the whole onion sitting here.
Okay.
And it doesn't have anything restricting its size. So you're going to get twice as big as onion bulbs, which is what it's all about.
So how far apart do you do these? Can you just put a bunch around in here, or?
Yes, and if you wanted to pull them early, like a lot of people pull these when they get just a little bit and they use them as scallions or little green onions, you can plant them really tight. Now if you want the bulbs, you need to give the bulb enough room, so.
Oh, wait a minute, it's down in the hole.
Now, as soft
Do you
as this
leave what about this skin? Do you leave all that on there?
Yes.
Okay.
As soft as this soil is, all you gotta do is just like that. Man, you can really do it fast like that, can't you? Okay. Okay, now, got the idea there. Let's look at these onion plants. Now, different people have different ideas. Some people really like the sets, some people really like the plants. The reason I like the plants is that if you look on the label that we tore off this, it says yellow onions. It doesn't tell you what kind they are.
Right.
It could be, I know they're pretty good onions, and they taste pretty good because I've done them before, but when you buy the plants, it'll tell you exactly what kind of plant they are. This is a Granix onion. It's the same thing as a Vidalia. Those are Georgia Vidalia, but ours won't be as sweet as the Vidalias because we have low sulfur low sulfur soils. You need long, warm winters and the right sulfur content in the soil to get those really sweet onions. Okay, do the same thing with this, but you want to cover the roots. Now these have roots, so you want to make sure you get those down in there. Okay. And then in the spring, when it gets when those onions start making bulbs, we'll pull the soil gets dry, we can pull the soil away from those bulbs again like these. You have to plant these a little bit deeper than these, as you can see by doing that.
So how often do you have to check these to know, to do all that root checking?
They're done. You ain't have to worry about them again.
You said you have to come back and knock the soil off.
When they start forming bulbs, and you keep an eye on them. You can keep an eye on them. You can see when they start forming bulbs. Mm-hmm. Now these, we'll wait till to harvest these. This will get a real nice green top on it. Mm-hmm. It'll turn yellow, and then when it'll fall over. When most of these plants, the leaves have fallen over, then we'll knock them all over and wait a while, and then the bulbs will really get bigger, 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 bigger. Once you break this off, that means all the nourishment's going down in the bulbs once you break those over. And then before too long, you need to get them out of the ground, because they will rot and start over again if you wait too long. Now these are shallots, Dan, and these are some ones I last year. These are French shallots. These grow a little bit differently, and we'll show this later on this fall. Do the same thing to those, Tammy. The same thing. But they grow on top of the soil no matter what. You haven't got to worry about pulling the soil away from them. And there'll be like 5 or 6 or 7 shallot bulbs on one plant. On these onions, you'll get one bulb. On the shallots, you're going to get a bunch.
Do I mix them?
Doesn't make any difference.
Okay.
As long as I know. I'd put them a little bit farther apart than that, though.
Put these farther apart?
Yeah, give them room. Give them about 4 or 5 inches. That's good. That's better. Tammy, you're an expert. Jeez.
Well, I can do anything anybody tells me to do, bud.
I would plant those maybe a little bit farther apart than Tammy is, but they're still fine.
Okay.
Okay? Now, after we get done filming, you can come back and finish this off for me, okay?
Okay, sure.
Yeah. Okay. Okay, we've got some, and you've seen the technique. These are plants. Let's try some of these.
Okay. Where do I go?
Well, we've already done the broccoli. We don't need to do these. This is a parsley. Parsley, and no, I'm sorry, that's cilantro. It's hard to tell the difference. This is parsley. Flat leaf, Italian parsley, and cilantro, and you can plant those right now too. Okay. You can plant a lot of stuff right now.
So you can make all your own salsa and your own spaghetti sauces and all that good stuff.
We're 3 or 4 weeks away from the last real frost from around here. So, but these things don't mind a frost. They kind of like it. They grow better. Once it gets real hot, all these things we're planting right now, they don't like it too much. So they're going to start looking a little puny when it gets real hot. The cabbage will turn yellow and that kind of stuff, and so will the cabbage. Now,
do you feed it more, or is it time to get it out of the ground then?
It's time to get it out of the ground. Once it turns yellow,
you have to take it out and
when it gets
use
real
your
hot,
beds for something else that likes the heat.
Hey!
Yay!
That's called succession planting.
Succession planting.
Plant the broccoli. When it gets bad, you pull them out and put some peppers in there.
Okay.
Now, for my secret tip of the month. Are you ready?
You want to take a break first?
Let's take a break.
Okay.
I'll go get some bourbon.
All right.
I'll take a break first, then we'll show the secret tip to planting
Bud's tomatoes.
Bud's tomatoes early, a month early, 2 months early. Okay, this is the top secret. Don't let anybody know about this, okay? You agree to silence? Don't make me come and get you. This is my tomato bed this year, and by the way, I rotate those beds because you don't want to grow tomatoes or peppers in the same beds over and over and over again, because they're very susceptible to wilts and funguses and diseases. So you want to rotate your beds, because if you don't, that disease will build up and build up and build up, and you won't have a very good tomato crop. You notice, look at all the leaves and stuff I put in here. I had some straw and stuff on top of this, Tammy, but I pulled that all off. I left this on because that won't hurt anything. So this bed's ready to go. I'm going to put some black fabric, not plastic, Tammy, but black fabric. Roll that to me.
There's your onion.
That's a garlic.
You leave it in there?
They're bad about self-seeding.
Okay.
I've got a garlic bed that I keep to myself, but then there's garlic plants everywhere. Okay, 4 by 16. This fabric I got at farm store. By being black, it absorbs the heat. It's going to heat this soil up. If you put tomatoes in the soil this time of year, they just sit there because they don't like cold soil. So we got to heat the soil up. Also, because it's better than plastic because the water goes right straight through, and the funguses and the diseases are soil-borne. Soil-borne.
Soil-borne.
They come out of the soil. So this keeps that dirt from splashing up on the tomatoes when it rains. That's how they get it. They get splashed up on the lower leaves die, and it slowly works up the plant till the whole plant's yellow. And a lot of people think that tomato plants are supposed to die in July, but guess what? They're not. They're supposed to die when it freezes.
Wow.
Okay, so we got this. You've got those little clips. See if you can put one right about in the middle there, Tammy.
Where? Here? In
Over
the middle?
over the edge like this, right over by the edge. Stick it in there. Stick one in here. And we'll stick one over there, Dan. The middle here. That keeps it from blowing away in the wind or any of that kind of stuff. Okay, now, it's a little bit early. We're going to have some more freezes. Tomato plants will not make it through a freeze, Tammy. So, in case it does freeze, we need to protect the plants. If it doesn't freeze, we made out like a beggar. But if it does freeze, we'll have this contraption in place to protect it.
What is this contraption?
They don't look it, but they're 8-foot long rebarbs that you can get at your construction store, at your metal, where you buy your metal, I-beams and that kind of thing. You know, you get a lot of I-beams and stuff for the backyard. And okay.
And they just bend like this, great? They bend?
And I just hand bend them. They're real easy to bend.
Okay.
Okay, now, after all the chance of frost are gone, we're going to use these cages. And this is a pretty nice cage, isn't it, Dan? It's a little bit expensive, but I bought a big roll of this wire. I had some shorter ones. You saw that over there, shorter ones. But the tomato plant will grow up out of that plant and be a mess. These taller ones are just the right size. They still will outgrow it, but not as much. I measured.
It's about 4 feet tall.
Yeah, 4.5 even. Yeah. And the holes, important, the holes got to be big enough for you to reach in and get a tomato. I've seen fences where they were so small you had to try to figure out a way to get them. So you want the holes big enough. Then you want to figure out what the diameter is you need to have for your tomato plants. Don't be skimpy, get it plenty big. Find out how many holes you got to count the holes, get your wire cutter, cut them down, and then leave a little tie on the edge to wrap around, and bingo, bango, bongo.
Bingo, bango, bongo.
And you say, man, that cage, I bet it cost some money. But those ones over there I showed you look brand new, 40 years old. So when you make these, you can pass them on to your children, your grandchildren. They're probably interested in growing tomatoes, right? Okay, so say for instance, the frosts are all gone, the tomato plant's right there. We'll come around and stick these cages right on top of there. And once the tomatoes intertwine in the cages, the wind won't blow it over. Very seldom we have a problem with wind blowing and blowing these cages over. Okay, but it's not that way right now, Tammy. It's still cold. So what we're going to do is cover it with plastic. But first,
I have to plant them.
have to plant them. You got the plants over there?
Yes.
Now how are you going to plant them? Geez, look. And that's it. Dig you a hole. Tammy ought to be getting good at this now.
Yeah, so how?
You want to dig it good, big, deep, because the tomato plant, the deeper you plant it, the better. Plant it all the way down to the first set of leaves, because the stem of the tomato plant, which almost all of you all know that, the stem of the tomato plant will get roots on it.
I think I dug too deep that time.
This little stem here, what part's in the soil will get roots on it. Make
So
the
down
plant
to the
stronger.
second leaf?
All the way down, yeah, down to this main part of the leaves. It's not scientific, so if you don't get it exactly the way you want it, don't spend a lot of time with it. Okay, there it is. Now after you plant these plants, and I didn't say that a while ago, you want to bring that watering can around, give them a good soaking. Okay,
even as much rain as if we've had a lot of rain, you still have to do that? Because the soil's very wet right now, so
I'd still do it. I still give them that first time when you first plant them, and then unless you have a drought, don't worry about them.
Okay.
Okay, now we're going to pretend that it's going to frost tonight, Tammy.
Okay.
We better cover them up. You ready?
Yeah.
Take that and drag that down to the end.
We even got Dan helping our cameraman.
Good Lord!
Even Dan's doing it.
All the way down the ground down there, Tammy.
Well, there's some sticker bushes down here, but I see you sent me to
I'll
this
get over
end.
there. Dan, now I feel sorry for you. Now I know what you got to put up with, buddy.
You got about 3 more minutes to give me. Yeah.
You know, I didn't
to
say
be
anything,
mean
but
to me.
Dan, I had all these World Garden Club members going to come over and help me out. Not a one of them showed up. So guess what I'm stuck with? Okay, now can you see what's happening here, Tammy? The
like
wind's
a
kind of blowing.
greenhouse.
The wind's kind of blowing. So, get some poles, bricks, rocks, whatever it takes.
Okay.
Pull them down like that. Tammy!
Hey!
Pull it down.
You need a pole over here.
Need a pole over there? Here.
Sorry. Oh, that's the one I put in the ground and it didn't do very good.
Yeah, you get. That's okay. Okay. Okay, stand on that.
Okay, okay.
We'll be back after lunch. You just stand there. Keep it. Okay.
There.
Nothing to it.
Nothing to it.
And this is wonderful. It can go down to, I've even had it go down like 25 degrees. I've even brought these electric cords out here and put light bulbs on them to heat them at night if it really gets cold.
Uh-huh.
We won't have to worry about that, but I've done that before.
Wow. You out of breath, bud?
Congratulations, Tammy. You're an organic gardener.
That's right. That's right.
Okay. Okay, guys. Until next time, Tammy and I.
I'm going to have to stand here and hold this down.
Yeah, we'll be right back. Going to eat lunch. Good gardening from Master Gardeners. Don't hurt my
Look
fence.
at my calculator.
Dan stepped on it.
See, you stuck me down there with
Huh?
the thorns.
Set you down there, what?
You know, we go down and put that down there and had all those thorns on it.
Did you see how that plastic was going? And Tammy was going, help me, help me, help me.